Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this tutorial we will work together the Caryopsis sweater, and I hope you will enjoy this tutorial and you will learn some new things about sweater construction and everything I done with this new design. So I want to talk first about the construction of the sweater and give you an idea how everything was built up. I made this sweater in two samples, one with long sleeves and one with short sleeves. The tutorial is I was making the video tutorial while working on the short sleeve version, but I will explain how to work the long sleeve version as well. So I hope you will enjoy this, and we will talk in a minute about the construction, especially the top part up to the armpit, because this is where we will work many different techniques. So this is the top part up to the armpit, and I divided this in four sections, which is the neckline ribbing, short rows, the raglan, and the armhole depth. This technique is borrowed, let's just say, from the knitting construction, and while working on the raglan we will increase but not for the sleeves. That's why it's the section 4 with the armholes, which will be worked separately for back and front. Now, to customize this sweater to your own measurements, because this tutorial will be for size small, you will find a link with my website post with sizes up to 5 extra large. But anyways, if you don't have the same tension as mine and you want to customize this, I will tell you how to start. So first, the neckline ribbing. This needs to be as wide or as large enough to fit your head. So this is the most important thing. We need to be able to dress this sweater, so we need to have enough stitches or enough rows, because we are working in single crochet in the back loop only, if enough rows to fit our head. But now we will need to pay attention, because we will, for section 3, we will need to prepare the stitches, and we will need to have a multiple of 3 plus 1 stitches at section 3 for each side, back and front. So we will have two raglan lines of 4 stitches, and you'll need to subtract those from counting and calculating. Now the section 2 is a short row section. This can be skipped if you don't want to work them. I just made this section just to make the back panel a bit longer for a better fit. So you need to pay attention with the stitch calculating, because on section 2 we will increase. On the raglan, I chose to make 5 rows. This means 10 stitches for each back and front panel. So we need to add those when we are calculating the ribbing stitches, because we need in the end, before starting section 3, to have a multiple of 3 plus 1 stitches. Then when we will start to work on section 3, we will work as many rows as we need to get to the desired width of our bust. So this section will be only on your shoulder, so if it's shorter, longer, it doesn't matter. This means that a closer fit or an oversized fit of your sweater. So you will work until you will get to the desired width, continuing to increase on the before and after the raglan lines until you'll get that desired width. And then on section 4 you will work only the back and front panel, and you'll need to work as many rows as you need until you will get the desired length for your armhole depth or the armholes. So this is about the construction and how you will work this sweater. So once again, the ribbing, the short row section, the raglan, and the armhole depths. These four can be customized. After that, we will join at the armpit and we will continue working on the length of the sweater with the trunk. Again, after section 4, for example, if you still need to add a bit of more width for your bust, you can add some armpit stitches when you join the front and back panel, and you can adjust that if you mess it up with section 3 and you didn't made the exact number of rows that you needed to get to that desired width. So here at section 3, you basically adjust the fit of your sweater if you want to have it closer to your body or larger if you want to have an oversized fit. I think I had somewhere of 54 centimeter in width for the body. So this means that which means that I had approximate uh, 22 centimeters positive is around my body, but I wanted an oversized sweater, and with the bottom ribbing I shrink it and just have it like I wished. But if you want to make it smaller, you can do that just by working less rows or fewer rows on section 3. So when I started with section 1, because I was adding at section 2 10 stitches, I started with a multiple of 3 for back and front, and 4 stitches on for each of the 2 raglan lines, and then I added those 10 stitches, and I ended up with a multiple of 3 plus 1 stitches, as I needed to start with the V stitches on section 3. Section 1 is working single crochet in the back loop only, section 2 with single crochet stitches, and section 3 with that V stitches worked in the one row below. And for section 2, we will work short rows. This means that with each row we will add and work with 3 stitches in more from the front panel. You will see right away how we will do that. And if you want to skip section 2, which is with short rows, you will need to have multiple of 3 plus 1 stitches on back and front panel, starting with the ribbing. And I think this was it with what I wanted to talk about the construction. We will start working. I told you that I use 2 different yarns and 2 different size hook. So 4.5 millimeter crochet hook for the ribbing and 5 millimeter crochet hook for the rest of the sweater. For the short sleeve, I use this Hobbii Twister Solid, which is a sport weight yarn, and Concept Lagom from Katia for the yellow sweater, which I found it listed on Ravelry as worsted, but I think it's more like a DK weight yarn. And I used the same pattern, the same hook size, but my gauge was a bit different, so I had to adjust the pattern a bit. So I just worked more stitches and a few more rows for the shorter one. The written pattern is written for sport weight and DK weight yarn, so if you want to check it out, I will let the link in the description below. So now we will start with the ribbing. It will be a folded ribbing for the neckline, so I will chain 15, And then when I will have the number of stitches, of course this can be adjusted as well. If you want, you can thicker ribbing, you can start working with more stitches. And we will start with the second stitch and single crochet into each stitch until the end of the row. At the end of the row, we will chain 1 and turn. Now the first and the last stitch will be worked through both loops, the single crochet, so 1 single crochet, and the rest of the stitches will be worked only into the back loop. So single crochet into the back loop only until you have 1 stitch left, and we will repeat row 2 until we will have in total 68 rows. After finishing all 68 rows, all the number of rows that you need for the neckline ribbing, we will join the ends with slip stitches. So you will need to insert the hook through both sides, through both edges. And after finishing joining the ends, we will fold. As I said, it will be a folded ribbing, and make sure that the rows are aligned, because we will need to single crochet into each of the side row, but going with the hook through both sides, through both edges. At the end of this round in single crochet, you will need to have 68 single crochets, the same number as the number of rows that you made for the ribbing. At the end, we will slip stitch into the first single crochet, And on the next step we will use some stitch markers to mark the raglan line and front and back panel, and we will have 4 stitches for the raglan lines and 30 stitches for the back and front panel. The first stitch needs to be marked, and it will be the first stitch or the last stitch of the front panel. And then we will count 4 stitches for the raglan lines and 30 stitches for the back and front panel. Okay, so I put the stitch markers, and now I will turn, and into the first stitch we are starting section 2 with the short rows. So into the first stitch we will do the first increase. The stitch is the front panel stitch basically. So 2 single crochet into the same stitch, then placing the stitch marker into the second stitch. Always place the stitch marker into the closest stitch to the raglan lines. Now we will work the raglan line stitches, and this is a wrong side row, so we will work single crochet into the next 4 stitches. Now next is the back panel, so we will start with an increase, 2 single crochet into the next stitch, which is the marked one, and we will place the stitch marker into the first stitch that we made. And now we will continue with the stitches of the back panel, and we will single crochet into each stitch until the last one of the back panel, which will be the marked one, and in that one we will increase again. Okay, so remove the stitch marker and work 2 single crochet, place the stitch marker into the second stitch of the increase, then 4 single crochet, and now we will work first the increase, and we're already starting with the short rows, and we will work 3 more stitches from the front panel. Then we will chain 1 and turn. So with each short row we will add 3 stitches at the end of each row. So now I'm working the single crochet stitches up to the marked stitch. Into the marked stitch we will do an increase, so 2 single crochet into the same stitch and placing the stitch marker into the second one. And now we have a right side row, and we will work into the raglan line stitches, front post double crochet. Now we have an increase again. Placing the stitch marker into the first stitch, so the closest one to the raglan lines. And now we will work single crochet stitches in each stitch of the back panel except the last one, in which we will work 2 single crochet. And then we will work the raglan lines after finishing the back panel, and we will see on the front panel how we will work the extra stitches for the short rows. So next we're working the front post stitches for the raglan line. So we have one front post, double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. Okay, now we will increase into the next stitch. And then we will work the stitches that we have for the front panel, and we will need now to add those 3 extra stitches from the front panel, and the first extra stitch will be worked together with the side of the last stitch. So insert the hook into the side of the previous stitch, then into the next stitch, and work them together. This will avoid having a gap when passing and working the extra stitches. And we will proceed the same on every end of the row where we will add those extra stitches, 3 stitches from the front panels. Now we will turn, and this will be the row number 3, and we will have to repeat now the row number, the first row. So this is a wrong side row, which means that the raglan lines will be worked in single crochet stitches, and we will proceed the same and work 5 short rows, increasing, and then we will work one more round, round number 6, with all the stitches and completing the round, and close the round into the first single crochet stitch. So again, when we need to pass and work the 2 extra stitches, we first insert the hook into the side of the previous stitch and then into the next stitch and work the single crochet. And now let's just repeat and work up to row 5, and then we will turn, and on row 6 we won't do the increases into the stitches. We only will work single crochet stitches and front post single crochet stitches into the raglan lines until we will get to the end of the round. So now I'm finishing row 6, working all the stitches around until I will get to the first single crochet that I made in this row. And again, this was row number 6, and on row number 6 you don't need to make the increases before and after the raglan lines. Just work 1 single crochet into each single crochet, and into the raglan lines you will work front post double crochet stitches. So now we will cut the yarn, and the section 2 with short rows is done, and now we will start the raglan section into the first stitch of the back panel. And here on the first round I worked half double crochet stitches into these instead of double crochet stitches, but you can work either half double crochet only for the first row, or if you don't want to mess it up and work half double crochet into the next rows, then you can do double crochet on the first row as well. Into the first stitch we will do the first increase, and we will chain 4, 1 double crochet into the same stitch, chain 2 and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Then we will skip the next 2 stitches and work 1 double crochet, chain 2 and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Skip the next 2 stitches, and we will repeat until we will get to the last stitch of the back panel. Okay, before the last stitch you need to have 2 stitches left, which will be skipped, and then into the last stitch we will increase again, 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet into the same stitch. And then we will work the raglan line stitches, one front post double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And then into the next stitch will be an increase again, one double crochet, chain 2 and 1 double crochet, and again chain 2 and 1 double crochet. And then we will skip 2 stitches and work a V-stitch, skip 2 and work a V-stitch. Basically we repeat what we did on the back panel. Okay, we will close the round after the second raglan stitch into the second chain, and always at the beginning of the round we will go into the first 2 chain space with a slip stitch and start the round from there. Now the second row will be without increasing, so we will work one V-stitch into each 2 chain space, but we will work the V-stitch into the same stitches as the previous row. So again I'm working the V-stitch right into the same single crochet as the V-stitch on the previous round. This will intercalate the V-stitches and give that nice look of the stitches. So always we will work one row below the V-stitches, and now because it's only the second row will be into the same stitches as the previous row. And we will continue working up to the end of the row with a V-stitch into each 2 chain space but 1 row below, and into the raglan lines we will continue working those front post double crochet, and we will do it at every round. So those remain the same with each round. And now we will repeat until the end of the row, and we will close the round with a slip stitch into the second chain, and then go with a slip stitch into the first 2 chain space, and we will start the round from there. At round 3 will be again an increase round, so we will increase it every other round, and we will start with chain 4, go under the chain 2, 1 row below, and work 1 double crochet, then again chain 2, I forgot to chain 2 here, so again chain 2 and 1 double crochet into the same space. So we are working the stitches into the 2 chain space 1 row below. This will be always the increase at the beginning of the round. Now we will go into the next 2 chain space, which is the next V, and we will work a V-stitch again under the 2 chain 1 row below. Now we will continue working the V-stitches into each 2 chain space or into each V-stitch but 1 row below, and into the last V-stitch or last 2 chain space and into the first 2 chain space before and after the raglan lines. We will do the increase, and increases will be, except the first one, will be 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. Okay, so again into the last V-stitch before the raglan line we will do the increase, and we will work in total for the raglan section 12 rows, and increase at every other row. The last increase, and now the stitches from the second raglan line, and we will close the round with a slip stitch into the second chain, and then slip stitch into the first 2 chain space to start the next round. Now the next round will be without increasing, and we're going again to start with chain 4, and go into the or under the 2 chain space 1 row below and make 1 double crochet, then go into the next 2 chain space and work a V-stitch under the 2 chain space 1 row below. And then we will continue working the V-stitches like that into each 2 chain space, and the raglan line will be worked with front post double crochet stitches as we did at every row. And we will continue to work 12 rounds. And after finishing the 12 rounds, the raglan will look something like this. And I don't think I have 12 rounds, it's just a bit just to show you how the raglan will look, and we will continue to increase. And this is where you can start and keep measuring, and when you have the width that you want for the sweater, you can simply stop and start working the next section. Okay, these are the 12 rows of the raglan, so this is how it's looking, more like a boat. And we will start now to work on the front and back panels for the armhole depth. So we are starting working the section 4. The pattern will be the same for back and front, and we will start with the back because here is where our yarn is into the first V-stitch of the back panel. And we will start again into the 2 chain space of the first V-stitch, and we will start with chain 2 and then go into the next V-stitch, and we will work a V-stitch into each 2 chain space 1 row below until we will get to the last one of the back panel, so just the one before the raglan line. Okay, so we will finish the row with a double crochet into the last space. So always we will start the row with chain 2 only and finish the row with a double crochet. And we will repeat the first row until we will have in total 14 rows, or until the armhole depth measures the needed length. And we will repeat the same pattern for the front panel. So here is the back panel, so I just finish it and cut the yarn. And now we will rejoin yarn into the first V of the front panel, and we will start working from there. And we will rejoin the yarn into the 2 chain space, and we will repeat the same pattern as for the back panel. So working again 14 rows. Attention that the first row has to be on the right side, and the last row, the 14th, needs to be on the wrong side, because we need to make the joining of front and back panel with a round on the right side. This means that if you want to adjust the number of rounds, make sure that you have an uneven number, sorry. So could it be 14, or if you want to last 12 or 16, 18, and so on. So now I just worked the front panel, and we will chain 2 and turn and work as a row 15. So we will work the entire front panel back. Now we are on the front on the right side, and when we will get at the end of the front panel, we will join at the armpit with the back panel. And this is the joining round basically, and that's why it needs to be on the right side, because starting from now we will start working on the trunk and we want to be on the right side. The stitch it's looking the same on right or back, but yeah. So here is how we will make the join. So yarn over and insert into the last stitch of the front panel, and then into the front stitch of the first stitch of the back panel, yarn over and pull it through first 2 stitches, and then finish the double crochet. Then chain 2, go into the same 2 stitches and work the second double crochet of the V-stitch. And this is how we did the first join at the armpit, and we will see how we will finish the row to make the second join. So now we are simply working the V-stitches until we will get until the end of the round. And at the end of the round we will yarn over, insert the hook into the last stitch of the back panel, then into the base of the chain 2 at the beginning of the round, yarn over and pull it through the first 2 stitches, and finish then the double crochet. And now we will need to chain 2 and slip stitch into the second stitch, second chain, to finish the last V-stitch. And now to start the next round, we will need to go back into the last 2 chain space and start the round from there. Chain 4 and double crochet into the base of the previous V-stitch, and then continue and working the V-stitches around, and when you will finish the round we will slip stitch into the second chain, and we will work for the body 30 rounds or until you will get to the desired length. So after finishing 30 rows, we will go and work one last row before the ribbing. Now you can work as many rounds as you need to get to the desired length. So now we will start the last row before ribbing, which will be instead of the V stitches, so double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, we will work 3 double crochet under the 2 chain space 1 row below, and we will do this around, and then we will start working the ribbing. Okay, we will close the round into the chain 2 because we started with chain 2, And now we will change the hook size to 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, and again we will work a fold ribbing. For the yellow sweater, for example, I just work it a single ribbing, so I chained half amount of stitches plus 1. So now we have 14 stitches plus 1, which means we will chain 15. If you want a thicker ribbing or a narrow ribbing, then you can chain as many stitches as you want. Then starting with the second stitch, we will single crochet into each stitch of the chain stitches until we will get into at the sweater edge. And then we will connect with the sweater edge with slip stitch into the next 2 stitches of the sweater edge. Then we will turn and we will single crochet into the back loop only into each stitch except the last one. Into the last stitch or the edge stitch, because we'll also be on the turning row, will be the first one. We will single crochet through both loops. Now we will chain 1 and turn, single crochet through both loops into the first stitch, and then single crochet into the back loop only for the rest of the stitches until we will get to the sweater edge. Always count the stitches and make sure that you have 14 stitches. And then slip stitch into the next 2 stitches of the sweater edge and turn, and we will repeat these 2 rows until we will complete the entire body of the sweater. And now that we finished the ribbing, we will fold it, and we will I don't know, join the edges or fold this, and you can use a sewing needle if you want and just sew these pieces together to have the folded edge. This can be done with the sewing needle if you find it easier, but I want to use also the crochet hook, and I will join and make this ribbing, and I will fold the ribbing using slip stitches or surface slip stitches, because this will be basically what we will do. So I'm working on the right side of the sweater, so I will fold it inside, and I will you can go when first you will insert the hook, you can go in any stitches that you will find easier to see. The idea is that the rows from the ribbing need to be aligned, and you need to connect or join the exact same row. And if you want, you can go into the first stitch of the ribbing, or I found it easier this way to go exactly into the stitches of the last row before the ribbing. But any way you do it, you need to just go with the hook into that stitches that you find easier to see. And your working yarn needs to be under. Then you will need to insert the hook through both sides, yarn over and go through both sides with the yarn and pull out a loop, and then go and pull it through the working loop like a slip stitch. And now the second one. And always make sure that you're going into the same row. And we will continue doing this until we will complete the entire ribbing. This will be slow process because needs to pay attention when you insert the hook. If you find it easier with the sewing needle, you can do it this way as well. And by the way, because I'm using the 4.5mm crochet hook here, I do recommend to use the 5mm crochet hook because I had to undo it because the slip stitches were too tight, or keep the tension looser when working the surface slip stitches. And now after finishing everything, we will simply join the ends. At this step you can insert an elastic band into the ribbing if you want. It can be. If you feel like you will want to add a bit to be more I don't know, to have more have it closer to your waist, then you can just insert an elastic band. And after that step you can join the ribbing. I will simply join it together as two single pieces. I won't go around on the fold because I found it easier this way. Again, for joining the ribbing edges or ends, you can simply go with the sewing needle if you find it easier, or I will simply do slip stitches or single crochet stitches, whatever you find easier to use for this step. And when joining, make sure that you're going with the hook through all the stitches and make the join. Okay, now as I said, for the yellow sweater I did only a single ribbing, so it's not folded, but you can do it as you wish. For the single ribbing I just chain the half number of stitches and then go with the same method working the ribbing. And now we will talk about the sleeves. The sleeves will be worked into the armhole, and we will finish the sleeves. We won't do any decreases along, but only on the last 3 rows. So the last row after the V-stitch will be the one with the 3 double crochet into each 2 chain space, And then for the last 2 rows we will do some decreases and finish the sleeve with a cuff. For the blue sweater that I'm working on right now, I just chose some short sleeves and only working a ribbing, but I will show you how to start the round, how to work the first 2 rounds for the sleeve in case you want to work a longer sleeve. So we will connect the yarn or rejoin the yarn at the armpit into that stitch. And we will work starting V-stitch with that chain 4 and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. And then the pattern for the armhole for the side rows, because we're working into the side rows over here. And remember that on the armhole depth we worked 2 chain at the beginning of the row and double crochet at the end of the row. So basically we will have now 2 chain double crochet, 2 chain double crochet, 2 chain double crochet, like spaces, and will work the V-stitch into one space and then skip the next one and work a V-stitch into the next space. So here I made the first V-stitch and now I will skip the next space and I will go and work a V-stitch into the next one. And when we are getting next to the raglan line in that last V-stitch and the first one after the raglan line, we will work a V-stitch even if into the space before we worked a V-stitch. So until we will get there, we will just work a V-stitch, then skip the next space and work a V-stitch into the next space or into the next side row. Again, so I'm skipping the space and working into the next with a V-stitch. Then again we will work a V-stitch into the next side row, skipping the one that it's before. And when we get to the last V-stitch, as I said, even if I worked into the space before a V-stitch, I will work into the last V-stitch before the raglan line. I will work a V-stitch, and then the raglan lines will be worked with front post double crochet for the entire length of the sleeve, except the last rows that I told you that we will make some decreases there. But while we are working the V-stitches rounds, we will work the raglan lines along the sleeves as well as we did it on the shoulders. And now we will go into the mirror. So again, into that V-stitch, the first one after the raglan line, we will work a V-stitch. And then again we will go into the next space, because it's the same how we did before the raglan line, and then we will repeat the same process, skipping one space or one side row and working a V-stitch into the next one until we will get to the end of the round. Okay, again let me show you a bit lower because I was going out of the screen. So we're skipping one space and going with the next V-stitch into the next space or into the next side row. And after finishing the row, we will slip stitch into the second chain. And now for the second row, if you remember the second row on the raglan section, we did the same. So we will work the V stitches on the second round of the sleeve into the same spaces as the previous row, as the first round. So we will start our round from the chain 2 space, the first 2 chain space, then chain 4, and we will go with the double crochet right into the same stitch where we worked the first V. And then going into the same space as the previous round V and working the V stitch. And we will continue like this from starting with round 3. We will be the same, working under the 2 chain space 1 row below, and for the sleeve we will work in total 48 rounds in V-stitch, or until you will get to the desired length. For example, for the DK weight yarn I worked only 40 rows. And after we finish the V stitches, we will work the row with 3 double crochet, and then the last 3 rows will be in single crochet, and before the cuff we will do those decreases. So the first row will be with 4 single crochet and 1 decrease, then the next row will be 3 single crochet and 1 decrease, and the last row before the cuff will be with 2 single crochet and 1 decrease. And then we will make a single cuff, so not folded, of 7 stitches. And this will be the thing with the longest sleeve, but let's see how we will work the short sleeves for the sweater. So I'm using the 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, and before starting with the ribbing we will work a single crochet round, a base round, and remember, as I said, that we have a side row with 2 chains and a side row with double crochet. So you will have to alternate 2 single crochet into one side row and 3 single crochet into the next side row, or you need to adjust the number of single crochet according with your tension. So when you feel that the tension is okay, you can work the pattern, follow the pattern like this. Okay, and after we will finish the single crochet round, again when we are getting to the raglan lines, we will work front post double crochet stitches, but on this round, no, not front post, sorry, single crochet stitches, because we're not working a long sleeve. So just single crochet around, and then at the end we will just chain 15 and start working the ribbing the same as we did with the bottom ribbing. So from now the process is the same as we did it at the bottom of the ribbing. We will work this wide ribbing and then fold it and join the edges with with slip stitches, with surface slip stitches. Okay, now because we have my last row of the ribbing was with the working loop at the top. Remember that on the bottom we had it at the bottom. So basically I will bring the working loop at the bottom like this, folding and just pull it out to be on the right side. And then when working the surface slip stitches, I will go first into the single crochet round because it will be easier to see the stitches. So I will go right into the single crochet, because for each single crochet each single crochet has a corresponding one ribbing row, so it's easier for me to do it this way. And as I said and recommend for the bottom ribbing, I will change the hook size to a 5mm crochet hook, the one that we worked the entire sweater, so the slip stitches won't be too tight. And we will work the surface slip stitches using the 5mm crochet hook. So now I'm going into the second single crochet and the second side row and working the slip stitch. And we will repeat these steps until we will finish with this folded ribbing. And we are so close to the end. We will just join and then repeat the same for the second cuff or the second sleeve. And after that, the sweater or t-shirt, this looks more like a t-shirt, is done. All you need to do is to weave in all the looser ends and block the sweater to measurement and then wear it with pleasure. So this was the tutorial and I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something new, and I will wait for you next time. Bye bye.